do quit your day job? That's today's episode. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And welcome to the Investing in Real Estate show. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about how to know if you are ready to say, hey man. Is that what you say to the man when you're ready to leave? Hey man.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Hey man.
You stick it to the man.
Stick it to the man. I am ready to quit my day job and take the plunge either in a new endeavor, or I'm going to rely on that passive income that I've wanted to build or I am building with my real estate investing portfolio, right?
Exactly right. And this is timely because Clayton did just that this weekend. He quit his day job. He was the weekend anchor on Fox News for Fox and Friends. And this Monday was his last show. And this is a decision we took many months to come around to because I quit my day job when our first son was born. We only have one son, as far as I know. So that was something that, it came a little easier for us, I guess, for me to quit my job. But then for you, that took quite a while. And if you've listened to this podcast, you're very familiar with the story of the freedom number and how Clayton came up with it because of the sort of insecurity around his day job. So it finally came to a head just this summer, and we decided that it was time for Clayton to let go of that. I don't know let go of that. What's a good idiom? Let go of that monkey.
Net.
Right. Monkey has nothing to do with it.
Let go of that monkey.
Could that mean a thing?
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you want to start it tonight, you can start it tonight if you want. Like, let go of that monkey.
Or I don't know. You know what I'm thinking of? The phrase "let go of your peanuts." Like
who moved my cheese?
Who moved my pigeon and monkey at the same time? So anyway, we thought about it. This was a big decision for us as a family because Clayton has been at this job for 10 years. We were very comfortable with his salary, but we didn't necessarily need it anymore. We've talked many times about how we've arrived at our freedom number, how we have made it such that we wouldn't need another contract for Clayton's job. If he got fired, we'd be okay because we've planned for that. But it was an emotional decision. It was a spiritual decision. It was a family decision, right? What do you want to say about that, honey?
Yeah, and I had lost my job many years ago, which was really in many ways the impetus for me getting involved in real estate investing. I had a company that I worked for that decided not to renew my contract, and it was very hard on me. I've talked about it on other shows, but it was very difficult for me because I sort of got to rewatch what my dad had gone through when I was like 12 years old when he lost his job. And it was like me being thrust back into being 12 years old again now when I lost my own job. And the company at the time wanted to go in a different direction. They wanted to sort of every newscast they wanted to do, they wanted to sort of do if it bleeds, it leads, they wanted to kind of lead off every newscast with murder and destruction. And they
didn't like your hair.
And they brought me in to have some fun. They wanted to have some fun on the morning show. And then I was like, I don't want to do murder. And so we just didn't see eye to eye, and they just decided not to renew my contract. But then I was like, holy smokes, I'm out of a job. I have no safety net. I have nothing at all to show for it. I barely had any money in the bank. And I was asked to basically, sayonara, see ya. And you realize in those moments, like, hey, this company controls my destiny. Like this boss, this jackass in the office, this little fat guy with this little punk. Like
you don't have to get personal.
Well, he was kind of a. Anyway,
But I mean, in
but he was controlling.
You lose your job, and it's super personal, right?
Right.
Because they don't like how you look,
or how you act.
It's the only job in which that's totally okay. Like she doesn't have the right look anymore. She's
right.
Right.
And this grovelly little dude, he's going to control my destiny, so I just vowed then many years ago, whatever it was, 10 years ago, that I was never going to let that happen to me again. And so it took me a while to kind of figure out how to put all of those pieces in place with real estate investing. But I knew at the time that real estate investing was the vehicle. I just didn't understand the buy and hold strategy and passive income. It took me a few years to figure that out. And once I did, then sky was the limit, So yeah, that's
So
accurate.
when we met, Clayton had just got the job at Fox. I had just moved to New York because I was working for CBS at the time. And so I worked Monday through Friday, and Clayton worked the weekends. And so he was always during the middle of the week while I was at work up to some kind of entrepreneurial pursuit. He was trying to start podcasts, he was doing any number of really passive income strategies because he understood that he wanted to have passive income, but he didn't quite understand how. And he had just got burned in real estate. He's told that story you can find on several podcasts if you just scroll back. And so he wasn't quite there. Well, flash forward 10 years later, and now it's time. And we ran the numbers. And you know what? We ran them over and over and over again. And even then, Clayton was nervous because the other day before his last show, he's like, there's like some nerves in me. And I was like, honey, I've showed you these numbers, backwards and forwards in each way until Tuesday. And you know that we're ready for it. But there's old code that exists inside of you that thinks, I need to be a paycheck employee. I need to have a job, right? It's like your character in Westworld and you're the last season's model that has this programming inside of you, and it's still not completely broken. And so what I want to do today is talk a little bit about that and continue to talk about that, but also talk about how we ran the numbers and how we knew 110% that we were going to be okay.
Right. And your dad called me today. I don't know if he told you this. And
No, you didn't.
he's been an entrepreneur since he was 17 years old, and he's an investor with us, and he's owned passive income. He's had rental properties, which have been a huge driver for him and his freedom in his life. But something he said to me on the phone today was, he said, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 17 years old, so I've never had that sort of paycheck mentality. Working for somebody else and having that paycheck mentality. You're coming from a world where you've built up, an amazing company, an amazing portfolio of rental properties and passive income, and now you're going from this world to that world. So I can't really put myself in your shoes in that regard, but I will say, he's like, there's nothing like it. And he said, there is some of that old cruft that will exist in your brain about, about this sort of thing. And, so, it was an interesting moment, an interesting thought. And I hadn't really thought about that old code, that old computer code that you need to work for somebody else. It's the rich dad, poor dad philosophy, right? It's the way that you build wealth is you get a job, you get a raise every few years, you put a little money away for retirement in a 401k plan, and then you hope you're okay, you cross your fingers. But that's the old code that exists in so many of us.
Right. And so when the numbers tell you you're safe and your passive income exceeds your active income, you're safe, right? But there's still something inside of you that says, but what if, and I mean, I can't really tell you for certain that one is safer than the next, right? Who knows like what your job security is in your day job, and who knows what kind of passive investments you've got, right? You could have passive investments in penny stocks, and then, maybe your day job's better, right? But we feel very secure in the types of passive investments that we have chosen, which are single family rental real estate. And we feel like there will always be an economy in which families need to live in these homes. And so we feel like that was more safe than, say, stay in a broadcast job where, in 10 years they think, oh, that guy's too old, or that guy's too, I don't know, his jokes relating to Nintendos are not hitting on the new audience or whatever.
Those are great jokes.
Right. I don't know all the reasons that they can cut you in broadcast, right? You gain too much weight. It's brutal business.
Ratings. And who knows? And, they run out of money, or, God, cable channels, suffer and go out of business, and
right.
They cut shows. We saw NBC Sports, that whole channel just collapsed. A couple of my friends went to work for them. So there is no, and you know what, at the end of the day, as somebody who just told me that they had a friend who was 17 years in the broadcasting field. She was an anchor, and the one day they just said, bye-bye, we're done. And she's like, oh my God, I've tied my entire identity to this job of doing broadcast television, and it's gone in a poof, So,
right.
Yeah, we have identified, single family residential real estate, even in a down economy, is a safe and really smart investment strategy. Why? Because in those blue collar, hardworking neighborhoods, folks work. They still need a place to live. Even in a down economy, because in a down economy, it's even way more difficult to get a mortgage on a property. So people either
Right.
rent or they buy, right? There's no in between. They rent or they buy. And for those individuals, I want to own those properties that they're renting.
Right. Yeah.
So let's dive into
So,
some of the things that you put in place, some of the spreadsheets, some of the data, and how we can help other people who are maybe thinking about doing something similar to this.
okay. Because I think that most people have this assumption that, like, oh, you work in TV, they have six-figure salaries, you must be fine. But I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast have six-figure salaries, and they know that your life expands to meet the salary that you've got, right?
Right.
So it's not like, oh, I still live the same way I did in college, so now I've got all this extra income to go boating and go to, I don't know, Florida for spring break or whatever it is you want to do. So, we have a family of five now. We have high expenses. Even though we try and keep certain expenses low, it's still expensive to live in New Jersey and raise five. We don't have five kids.
Five kids.
We
Well,
have three kids.
something's going on here because you think we have an extra son somewhere, and you think we have five
Right.
kids. You have something you want to tell me?
No, I don't. But we have a family of five. So it's not just the fact that like a big paycheck is enough. And no matter what, how big your paycheck is, if and when your paycheck eventually ends, you want to make sure that you've got income that's coming towards you on a regular basis that you can spend for your meals out, for your meals in, for your regular expenses. I was telling Clayton the other night I had seen a 60 Minutes piece years ago on Vanessa Redgraves, the actress. And this woman has, what does she have? Two Oscars, several
No, she has one
nominations.
Oscar, four nominations.
Right. So, I mean, very, very accomplished actress, right? Can probably not walk down the street without at least one person, even now, recognizing her. And I think it was Morley Safer was like, why do you keep working? You're working on Broadway, you've got this movie. And she's like, I have to pay my bills. And I was like, have you managed your money very well if you have been working for like 40 years in Hollywood? Marquee movie titles and
Right.
you still have to be working,
Right.
right? So even these really accomplished people don't understand that you have to have passive income. You have to buy assets that are going to continue to perform, right?
Well,
Own performing assets.
exactly. I hear from doctors all the time that will write to me and say, something you said on the podcast really resonated with me. I've been in school for 13 years. I've been working in the medical field, and I've never managed to create and add net assets and cash flowing assets to my life. I've just been so busy. I've been working. I have some good savings, but I don't have anything that's truly providing a high ROI and adding to my net worth that can, cash flow for the rest of my life. So even doctors, I mean, we hold them up in such high regard, right? But
Right.
we're not taught this. And so at no fault of their own, we're going to try to help you get there.
Our dentist told me that he had, like, in all of dental school, he had something like one or two classes on business, how to manage your money. Like they're just taught the trade, but not how to be successful in the business of that trade. So I think that's probably pretty common for doctors. They don't understand that. They know how to fix your spleen, but
Right.
they don't know how to have a performing asset. So anyway, okay, I'm going to give you 3 steps then to evaluate if and when you're ready to quit your day job and stick it to the man.
All right.
Okay, step number 1, we've talked about several times before, is make sure your balance sheet is up to date. So your family balance sheet. If you look at episode 106 with Clayton and I, that's from all the way back in January, how to balance your liabilities versus assets. That is where we taught you how to make a family balance sheet. And we used to do it once or twice a year. Now I do it almost every other month because these numbers change. We acquire rental real estate at a pretty rapid rate. So I want to know how our net worth has changed. What are we worth overall, right? Okay. Step 2 is either create or go to your budget. What is your monthly budget that you have done in order to come to your freedom number, right? What do you need every month to survive and what do you need to thrive? Okay.
Right.
Most of the time you've done this, you know this. This is how you choose where to live because you know what kind of mortgage or rent you can afford. This is how you choose what schools to send your kids to, how to choose your cell phone plan, right? You know what you can afford. So you know what you need to survive. And then we added 10% to that number because we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive, right? We don't want to say, oh, we can't go out that night because we should eat in and save money. Because that's, I mean,
Right. We want to take that
right?
weekend trip, that little getaway. So we pad it by 10%. So again, if you're new to this podcast, and many of you are, we know we have a lot of new listeners tonight on this show, please download our Freedom Cheat Sheet. It's 3 pages. It's free. And you sit down with your partner, your spouse, and go through it. And you'll figure these things out. And just sit down with your laptop, sit down with your iPad, and go through your expenses. And you're going to discover some things in there. Like, oh, I'm paying for a Hulu subscription and a Netflix subscription and this random iTunes subscription and these other things. You're going to discover some things in your monthly bills that you didn't anticipate. But it's a great lesson. So it's easy to download that cheat sheet. Just go to our website, morrisinvest.com, MORRIS invest.com. It's free. It'll pop right up and you can download it. Okay, that was step 2.
Okay. And then step 3 is to list your passive income. List out what you get every month from each investment. So, do you have gold? Do you have stocks that perform dividends, that pay you dividends? What do you get from those dividends? $9 a month? I don't think I've ever got a dividend that was bigger than, say, like $88. So, for us, all of our performing assets look like this. 123 Main Street, 456 34th Street. So they're all addresses and how much we make. We also have some notes that we've issued to either friends or family for them to invest. And so those notes are performing at a minimum of 6 to 8%. So what do we actually get from those? Again, we don't think about when we get that chunk of money back. We're thinking about how we add to our passive cash flow. So when I actually get that 20,000 I lent to somebody back, I'm not quite as concerned. I want that 20,000 coming at me every month, right? So that we can spend it. So I ended up listing this as a whole number. For instance, I'm just looking at a property we have here on Adams Street, rents for $800. I didn't go in and say, well, I'll take 40% of that because I'm budgeting for taxes and such. I just wanted to list it out in whole numbers so that at the bottom, I'll see what we get in total. But then I know that expenses come out of those because I'm estimating right now what we're getting. Like, are we close to our freedom number? And I just felt like that was a little bit complicated to take out all the, I'd rather take it out of the whole number. Like when I have all of the assets listed right now. Should I use real numbers? Do you want me to?
Sure.
Okay. So at this point, when I have 38 of our assets listed, all 38 passive assets, and they are all cash flowing a total of $20,603.49. So I can take out, a certain percentage of that to make sure that I'm budgeting for taxes and expenses. I know 10% is going to the property manager. Nevertheless, the same is true for if we looked at your paycheck, right? You were making, let's say, you actually weren't even taking home $20,000 a month. So we knew what your salary was, and if you divide that by 12, you're making roughly this amount. But again, the government's taking a bigger chunk of that than they're taking from your passive income. Medical insurance, all of that stuff. Obviously, now we have to pay for medical insurance because we're on our own. But does that make sense? So what I'm doing is comparing, this salary to that salary. And then that like things chip away at those things and you can budget for that. I have other ways that I budget for the taxes and the property management and the other expenses. But what I wanted to know and what I wanted to, present to you to say, look, you need to break the code that says in your head that you need this paycheck because the numbers don't support that.
Right. Yeah. Once you start, and I got an email this morning actually from an investor, a wonderful investor who's worked with us for about, I think about a year and a half now, 2 years. And she said she was able to quit. She had two jobs, and her goal was to get down to one job by with passive income. And she was able to this past August quit that other job because of financial freedom and because working towards financial freedom, which is amazing. So it can be done, and if you know your numbers, then you can start to position yourself. And once you see it in coming in, like every month, and you start to see that passive income hitting your account, it starts. It's just a game changer. I mean, it really is. I've had to take a sort of a deep breath about it and think, wow, okay, so if we're doing that every month, we're consistently bringing in, cash flow as we add additional rentals to our portfolio and grow them and grow them and grow them. That's not only cash that we can provides for my family, but then it can also then take the next step and continue to pull in that passive income, that cash flow in order to buy additional properties. And that's
Right.
how the snowball effect really begins to happen. Taking $20,000, $30,000 a month from your passive income from your properties, you're able to buy, a new property every other month, basically.
Right. So, there's two things that I want to address, the conventional wisdom of when to quit your day job, because I used to read all of these books about how to know you can make it on your own as a freelance writer. And every book that talks about, incorporating yourself and working for yourself says that you should save up 6 months of living expenses, right, in some kind of savings account so that you'd be safe if you stop making money or you can't support yourself. And then also stay in your day job until your passive job surpasses your regular paycheck. Well, okay, you did the second thing, right? And the first thing, make sure that you have enough cash for expenses. We did that too. We made sure Clayton in our joint account, he called this one account treasure chest. When you name your online bank accounts in the app. So we built up the treasure chest to make sure that we were safe, right? So we're good on that front. And then they also say to make sure that you diversify your portfolio when you have these passive revenue streams. And we diversify by different neighborhoods that we invest in and different cities, and then again different asset classes. So we don't really invest in multifamilies. We have maybe one or two duplexes, but most of the way we diversify is either different city or different asset, such as these notes. And the notes exist not only in our 401ks, well, no, we don't have those anymore, in our self-directed Roth IRAs, rather, and as well as in the LLC bank accounts that we own as well.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing, right? I mean,
It is.
this was a big week for us because for Clayton to actually take this big leap of faith, yeah, it was, it was big. It was big. I still am kind of reeling from it. And, last night I was thinking of writing a blog post about this. I might still, because I haven't had a glass of wine and I'm still a little lucid, even though it's 8:30. Usually by this time of day, I'm done. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
With the 500 emails I've gone through today and 80 phone calls, I already poured myself a glass of wine.
Right.
I worked hard today.
Did.
My first official day, sort of solo,
I mean, Clayton, I don't think there's ever a day where you can say I didn't work hard today. Clayton is a workaholic. But what was I going to say? Oh, there's a part of you that's really tied to your career in an ego type way. And I don't mean ego like that person's an egomaniac and you can't stand them. I mean the ego part of you that lives in a state of perpetual fear that you won't be safe, right? There's this part of your ego that holds on to things that it thinks will keep you safe at the expense of your dreams, a lot of times, at the expense of your own freedom, at the expense of your ability to grow personally. And, Clayton in this job, it was an amazing job for him at 30. But now he's 40 and it was time. Like he had grown as much as he was going to in that network, in that space. He had done as much as he could take about the, daily news and all of that stuff. And so it was time for him to grow as a person. And you hope that in any job, no one wants to be stuck in a job for 10 years, right? Even if it's an
Right.
exciting job. And so last night, I was so excited when I went to bed. I was like, he did it. That's amazing. I'm so proud of him. But I woke up with my mind at full force at 1 a.m., like just boing, my eyes opened, and I was thinking. And I was thinking about the things that were really comfortable. I'm very used to being Mrs. Clayton Morris. I'm very used to saying, oh, my husband's a news anchor. I'm used to the fact that people will give you like fancy things for Christmas gifts and that fancy people like I don't know,
Who do
Karl
I know?
Rove. Who?
I don't know. Who do I know? Stan Lee. I know William Shatner.
Yeah, right. Okay, Karl Rove's not a great one.
William
Although he
Shatner.
does, yeah, he sends us a nice Christmas card every year. Um, so I don't know. Like all of that stuff felt very comfortable to me, and I could literally feel that ego that was attached to it suffocating and shriveling until it was just gone and I didn't wake up with it anymore. So everyone, even if you don't have a job that's fancy, even if you're, I don't know, so you're an accountant, right? Who doesn't get this like beautiful send off in your day job and sizzle reel. There's still a part of your ego that's going to be starved with this notion that you can make it on your own.
Hmm.
And if you don't face it, it will be very painful. Or it can be, I found that experience very joyful. Like I was sleeping next to Clayton, who is sawing logs because it was the last time that he'll wake up at 3 a.m. And and I was just like, I'm okay to feel this. I felt really good about it, even though I knew that it was this part of me that needed to atrophy.
Yeah.
Do
I
you
mean,
feel something like that?
well, I tied so much of my self worth to this idea of a job, of a paycheck and somebody else's opinion of me. And it's hard once you commit to shedding the what other people think of you. Once you commit to that, your ego is going to fight for it, right? Your ego is going to like be like, no, I'm drowning, come back,
You're
feed
not
me.
safe. You need this.
Yeah, you're not
Right.
safe, feed me. And once you can realize, you can hear that other voice inside of your head, and you realize that it's a bunch of crap and that you're going to be safe and you're going to be totally fine, then it's liberating.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I carried around my iPad for the last few weeks after Clayton gave his notice. Because if I saw any kind of fear coming on, I'd be like, look at the spreadsheets. The spreadsheets, honey. It's okay. Look at the spreadsheets.
Right? She was like, yeah, you're like a nurse
Right.
in a ward, like checking me in.
Yeah. It was like he needs, 20 cc's of Microsoft Excel. Put
Yeah.
it in.
So, the lesson here is that in the same way, I guess I was sort of reminded of The Alchemist, the book The Alchemist. You and I talked about that a number of episodes ago. I don't know, it just kind of stuck out to me today, and I'm not sure why, but this idea of this journey, this sort of soul journey, being, from a place of fear is never going to get you there.
Hmm.
And, you know, going, going to those places where they're authentic and they mean that, I don't know, what's the best way to say that?
Um, okay. Well, I looked it up. It's episode 55 from actually a year ago, September of 2016, is the Alchemist Guide to Real Estate Investing. And I think the main lesson there is that um, you have to let go of what you find safe in order to follow your path,
Mm-hmm.
and listen to the signs and make sure that that the ego mind is out of the picture, so that you can be very clear with your intention to follow the signs.
Right. So
Right.
it's kind of funny that that seed was planted in when we did that episode, and we both read that book, and we did a podcast episode about it, and we heard from a lot of investors. We heard from a lot of people who listened to that show that said they thought that that was a really powerful episode. It's funny how you can kind of plant the seeds then, and then they come to fruition
Right. Yeah.
a year later.
I mean, we've been planning for this probably our whole marriage because um, I lost my job when we got married, and then we weren't really afraid back then. We still had yours, and then we're like, well, let's figure this out, right? Let's figure out how to make sure we have great passive income. But for me, my ego mind had to die a slow, long death because I was kind of one foot in, one foot out of, traditional broadcasting. And to come to my role here with Morris Invest was also a slow burn. So I had a long time. Whereas for you, you just decided to pop the balloon, which, if I must admit, your way's better. My way was more painful. You got to rip the Band-Aid.
Yeah, just got to cut it loose.
Right.
So anyway, so that's how we do it, folks. So you want to sum this up for everyone?
I guess in summary, you have it within you to build the life that you want, to have some kind of, and we're not, our lives are not like, oh, great, we've got the passive income and now we're going to do nothing, right? So what our goal is now is to grow our business, help other people find investment properties that fit their needs, right? We're matching investor to property. So that business in and of itself also makes money. And that's really where we want to put our efforts, is to inspire and help other people. Whether or not you ever buy a property, hopefully this will just change your mindset to know that you can have performing assets, whether it's whatever, right? You can invest in the bakery down the street and they pay you 40% on your money. Who knows, right? The point is that you're changing the code inside of you that says you need to be a paycheck person.
Right. Absolutely. So if you want to book a call with us, great. And we'll see if it's a fit for you. Just come over to our website. Just go to morrisinvest.com. Download that free cheat sheet, by the way, the Freedom Cheat Sheet, so you can kind of figure that number out. And book a call with us if you are ready to pick up your first rental property or your 10th rental property. It was amazing, actually, after the show, because I said on the air, I told everyone what I was doing in my departure speech and just said, I want to empower people. That's my goal. I want to help people build passive income, and that's what my company does, and I want to focus more on that. And I got so many emails from people that were like, I had no idea you did this. I didn't know you had a company. I didn't know any of that. I own 2 rental properties and I want to buy 10 more. And I've been a rental investor for many years, and that's great. And so it was amazing to hear. I mean, I guess you just don't think about it. You have a certain role and you're on that show and you never really reach out and talk about it. And
right.
amazing.
But then anybody who comes from that show to listen to us or watch us on this podcast is going to be so disappointed that you're not like climbing walls and throwing eggs in a plastic bodysuit and stuff. Should we add that to the podcast in some
I don't
capacity?
know. You mean I'm doing wacky and wild stuff now? Like I'm doing hot air balloon races? No, you know what I'm doing?
I mean, what should we do to really like
I'm just hanging out with
fun up
you.
the podcast? Right. I'm all ears. We don't have any elephants that we ride around.
You know what?
There's no barbecuing on a plaza. We should do like maybe next time we'll do our podcast in front of our barbecue.
Right. I'll juggle. It's National Donut Day.
Right.
So.
Well, sometimes I used to joke that Clayton used up all his like funny CPU on the show, for other people. Because when he comes home, I'm like,
he's so serious and he's working.
Make me laugh. Yeah, just make me laugh sometimes. Yesterday, actually, he was cracking jokes left and right in my kitchen. I was like, who is this guy? I think maybe you freed up some of that capacity.
I did.
So, but maybe you can
Look
share it
out.
more with our podcast listeners.
The comedian in chief is back home.
Yeah. They'll be like, this guy is not serious.
Right. God, I thought this guy was so serious. No, he's a clown. All right. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for downloading and subscribing. Please subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. We publish this show 3 times a week. We try to bring you as much value as we can, teach you how to, get out there, get buy and hold real estate, create passive income for you and your family. This is what we do. This is what we do day in and day out, and it'll help you maybe break that mold, leave your day job, and start to do something you've always wanted to do in your life. So that's going to do it for today, everyone. We'll see you back here next time on the Investing in Real Estate Show. I am Clayton Morris.
He is. I'm Natalie Morris.
And I'm the funny one. Now go out there, take action, and become a real estate investor. We'll see you next time, everyone.